As a therapist, when you log into the Zensible screen, the first thing you see is your calendar with all your bookings for the current day. If you are planning your sessions for that day, you'll go into one of the bookings. You will immediately see a very consolidated summary of what you have discussed with the client so far, whether they have done one session, two session, five session, nine sessions, it doesn't matter. The consolidated summary has all the relevant details that gives you a quick overview of what the client is facing. If you and the client had discussed what you want to talk about in the next session, that will be available here in the focus areas. Between the two sessions, life happens, and if the client wants to talk about something else, they can add that. They can even strike off one of your previously agreed on focus areas. In this case, this client has an upcoming interview next week. The client faces severe anxiety when she thinks about her interviews, and that's what you are working towards. There's also what happened in the last session, so that you can continue on from there. And if there were any homework assigned, whether the client has completed it, whether it worked for them, did not work for them, and why it did or did not work for them. In this case, the client had two homeworks. One was a visualization activity, which did not work for the client because no matter how much they tried, they were not able to continuously visualize themselves doing well in their interviews, unlike when she was able to do that during guided visualization in session. And the second homework, the client is happy. They were able to practice common interview questions and answers, but they are worried that if an unknown question that they have not practiced comes up, how they would do. Now that you know everything, you are fully prepared to take on this session with the client. You may even have a session plan with them. So let's go ahead and start the session. If the client has consented to recording, whether it is an in-person session or an online session, the automatic note taking will kick in. But if the client has not agreed to it, you can either talk to the client and mark consent on their behalf if they agree, or if not, you can just continue with the session. At the end of the session, you'll be able to add observations. So let's go ahead and add observations in this case. The client came in today preparing for an upcoming interview. She reported that the visualization homework we had assigned last week did not work for her, and she struggled to feel confident with it. However, she did find practicing common interview questions useful and said it helped build her confidence. Her main worry now is about facing unknown questions she hasn't rehearsed. In this session, we conducted a mock interview with some unpracticed questions. The client showed some nervousness but managed to stay engaged. I introduced a subtle breathing technique that she can use during interviews if she feels anxiety rising, and we practiced this breathing technique together. We also did a guided visualization with special focus on noticing how Kritika's body and breath feel when she realizes the exercise is calming her during the guided visualization. For homework, I asked Kritika to practice cleansing breaths daily, the one that I taught during session, and especially before her interview that is upcoming, to regulate her anxiety. In our next session, we will focus on additional grounding techniques to help her reduce her anxiety levels and build more resilience towards facing unexpected situations. If you notice, the whole thing was just 1.5 minutes of observation. You'll see that I mentioned the name a couple of times, but it has been removed from the observation entirely and replaced to protect the client's privacy. So this is how we protect client's privacy and keep the notes secure. So let's go ahead and save the summary, and we will generate the notes. Once the notes are generated, you as a therapist will be able to go ahead and see all of the generated notes, edit them if you want to make any changes for any of those SOAP notes. The focus sessions that we discussed for next session will come up here automatically, and AI will also suggest additional focus sessions. If you want to talk about something else in the next session and you like it as a therapist, you can include that as focus areas for the next session as well. You'll also be typing additional focus areas if you wanted to, and the activity that we discussed is also available here. And if you're happy with this activity, you can go ahead and generate notes. Additional AI suggested activities are here if you want to include that and generate them together, or you can type in another homework or activity and send it to the client. So let's go ahead and generate details over here. Generated details have step-by-step instructions for clients to do the guided breathing technique. If you want to, you can make changes here and edit them. If you are happy with them, you can go ahead and approve and send it to the client. You can choose what you want to send to the client after approving. In this case, we are going to send the activities, the focus areas, and maybe the subjective notes that you have. And we'll go ahead and share this with the client. On the client side, they'll be able to see the notes that you have just shared. So this is what we discussed with the client, and then the activity that we made them do those details, or also the step-by-step instructions are available here. And then the client will then be able to mark them as complete and give their feedback and all of that. Notice that this is the client app and not the therapist app. This is how Zensible makes therapists admin work after a session easier. It takes less than 5 minutes to complete, and it also makes sharing these details with the clients simpler. For the clients, it gives all the necessary details of a session, and it makes them much more able to adhere to their activity and complete them because they have detailed instructions.